Hi, this is Gary D. Tonicourt at morethanthesnapshot.com with this week's critiques. And it looks like it'll be a short week, so let's get right to it. We start off with someone who was working on the image editing lesson, and here they have a nice photo, and you can see here there's a few problems to deal with. I don't know if the original was a RAW or a JPEG, but you can see these are the adjustments that they made, and I really like what they did. I think it improves the photo in every way. It really brought out a lot of detail in the building and in the sky, and so I think that's a good job. There was some question about maybe some artifacting in the sky. Let's see if we can take a look. And I don't think it was from compression. I think that you used some clarity and some sharpening, and you pushed the sky kind of hard to get it to look this way, and I think that brought out some of this look that we see up here. If you were to print this, I don't think you would notice this. I think this is something that you see on the screen, but you could give that a try and see. I'm just checking out the rest of the image. Looks nice and sharp and clear. So I don't think it's much of a problem. Alright, here we have some photos of some kids. Here there is a little bit of overexposure, so you could just hit the highlight slider a little bit and bring that in. It's not bad. And I think that the background is nice. It's probably going to need a little pump up in the shadows, just to give a little more light and life on the kids. And I probably would even take the brush and increase the exposure a bit and paint on their faces to bring that part out. That's the important part of the picture. Lighten that up a bit. Let's see how much we need to go. Alright, maybe about 3/4 of a stop or so. And that looks pretty good. You could also have maybe a tighter crop. Let's give that a try just for the heck of it. Maybe something like that. It's up to you what you like better. I think I like this better. Alright, here we have another shot. This one in black and white. Black and white, I tend to like a little bit of contrast. Just add a little bit of contrast there. And you got some nice engagement. I think it might be a little over sharpened or pixelated. It could just be that it was a small image, but it looks a little over sharpened. I see some jagginess here. Alright, nice family shot. I don't know how if you were using the timer probably to get the shot. You got good expressions, of course, on the adults. You have everybody's engaged with the camera. That's good. The little guy's not smiling, but you know how hard that is. I think having the tree directly behind you might have been. This looks like a nice background over here. I might have chosen to have that more as the background than the tree. Just personal preference. Also, there's a little bit of overexposure in the highlights. I'll take that down a bit. Again, I'd probably pump up the shadows. And the rest of it looks fine. A little bit overexposed in the highlights. And again, I'll pump up the shadows. It's good that you shot all of these shots in the shade, though. It provided soft light on their faces. I would have tried to find the spot with a little more open shade, because you can see he's a little bit more in the open shade, and he's got a highlight side to his face. He's a little more in the deeper shade, and it's more of his face is in a deeper shadow. If you really want to try taking this to the next level, next time go out with some reflectors or some speed lights and try adding in your own light to balance the situation. Again, both of these are in the deeper shade, and this time I like your background. That's nice. Again, I would pump up the midtones. I just grabbed the graph and slid it to the right. I'll take in the highlights a little bit. And that brings out the light on their face. I should also mention, since there's some brightness behind them, you could use the curves tool, and you grab this little point, and then you click over here on the bright part, and I just will drag that down a bit, and I'll drag this part down a bit. Darkening the background helps highlight the faces, and you're going to put that tool away when you're done with it. And then it seems now like the image needs some contrast, so I'll add contrast, and we'll take a look at the before and after. And I think that's better. Here we have another shot. I like the smiles are good. This one I think could be cropped tighter. Let's get rid of the crop proportion lock. And I'm going for just up here. Something like that. It's cute with the lettering. We'll take down the highlights a bit and maybe add a little bit of black. Alright. And probably would crop this image too. Maybe to more of a vertical. Something like that. I think same thing with this image. Take down the highlights, I'll bring up the shadows, and I'll crop it to a vertical. Alright, here we have a self-portrait. I like the environment that you picked. It's interesting. You're in a nice spot over here on the left. We have the water and some nice moss. I think you did a pretty good job with picking the environment. Exposure-wise, you were in a little bit of a tough spot because even though you're sort of in the shade, you have a bright highlight on your face. You can see on the side of your face and on your nose. I would say that's really the main problem with the image. And you could try to bring it back with the highlight slider, but you can still tell that there's a very bright highlight there on your face. And even it overexposed some of the water that's here. So had you found a spot or a time where you were deeper in shade, or if you had someone helping you, you could hold up a diffusion panel to block some of that light from coming in from that direction. But good job for your first shot. Okay, that's the full image. Another self-portrait. Welcome to the class. I like what you did here. It's a nice effect. I think the way you went about doing it, you know, for the way you did it, it came out pretty good. But using a 25th of a second for this kind of shot is kind of tough. And your light source was not very bright. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't like a speed light or something like that. And you can see that there's a lot of noise. So the combination of the high ISO, the long shutter speed, all of those things made this shot more difficult. Composition wise, I like it. Even lighting wise, I like it. I think whatever light you used just wasn't bright enough. Also, You could also try adding a light in the back over here, shooting at the back of your head and shoulder, and that would give you a nice little separation light to separate your black shirt from the black background. But a very nice portrait for your first attempt here. Here we have another self-portrait, and overall the exposure looks good throughout. The sky is not overexposed, and I think that the main problem is your face is in harsh shadow and your shirt's in a bright highlight. So a lot of this is just about positioning. Find a spot where you're in open shade, where you don't have both bright highlights and deep shadows, and you'll find that it's much easier to get a good exposure. And then here we have someone who was working on the exposure lesson, not the exposure lesson, the composition lesson, and was working with the rule of thirds. And you can see here that the horizon is in the upper third of this image. We also have a nice leading line taking us to this building. So composition wise, I think you did a good job. The horizon line is nice and straight. Everything seems to be in focus, and most of the exposure seems to be pretty good. A little bit burnt out on the white fence here. Just taking the highlights a little bit there. And that looks pretty good. Good job. And that is the last image for this week. So keep the images coming and keep practicing. You're doing a great job out there, everyone. So we'll see you next time. This has been Garrity Tonicourt from MoreThanASnapshot.com.